It's big, don't you think? Here we are in the Netherlands. Let's find the train to The Hague.
Please welcome on stage, Alan Richardson.
Alright, here we start because testing is so serious. We have to take it seriously. Does anyone want a guitar? It's really expensive. Over there, you can come and get a piano.
So here we are with the Alan, the evil tester, Richardson. He just gave an amazing opening keynote for this EuroSTAR number 26. And we are going to be having a short chat with him about the hot topics of testing.
You're gonna fall up the stairs.
Yeah, probably so. Let's test how it turns out. So we found a quiet place here. You had this amazing entry with Iron Maiden playing the Trooper and stuff like that. Can you explain what was that about? The opening idea was great.
So the opening idea was, how stupid can I make myself look on stage so that it can only get better after that?
Yeah, but, you had the guitar and everything.
I had an inflatable guitar.
Yeah.
In fact,
I actually got it on video.
Okay.
Is it okay if I share it?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
But because we're testers and we're risk averse, I've got two more spare inflatable guitars in there in case it broke, because I'm used to risk.
Have you been practicing the entry a lot?
No, so I had no idea what was going to work. I had no idea because with talks, what you tend to practice is your opening statement and get that done. Because then you don't have to think, and then you're going to roll and then try and practice your end statement, and you practice chunks in the middle.
Exactly,
But
the entry is important because it's like the first impression. It's hard to change the first impression afterwards. If it's positive, like really energetic.
Plus you're trying to open the bar, raise the bar for all the other keynotes. So
exactly,
go, I wasn't going to do that.
Oh my God, he was so amazing. Yeah, but that was great. The opening idea, you had the Ed on the screen.
Eddie from Iron Maiden was up there.
Yeah, Eddie.
And then we talked about in warfare, your plan doesn't survive contact with the enemy.
Yeah, it was. Who said that?
So I have no idea, because that's such a common phrase. I don't know if that's in
from
Carl
either one
something.
of the world wars or something like that.
Something
some like colonel said it or something like that. So
but I wanted to try and introduce the notion of requisite variety without explaining requisite variety. So I was just trying to explain, when you got a plan and it's fixed and it's step by step, it's not flexible. We need to have flexibility. And
that's cool.
You can't just have flexibility without knowing where you're going, because that brings in cybernetics, because cybernetics is goal seeking. So you need a goal in order to hit, in order to adapt around that. Then your feedback can tell you whether you're on track or off track. But then you need your skill sets to rely on, and if you don't have the skills to handle certain inputs, again you fail. So you need the skill sets that can handle the variety that's coming in.
Exactly.
But I tried to explain all that without mentioning requisite variety or cybernetics in any way.
Okay, you did it pretty well, but no plan survives the contact with the enemy was like the first idea there. I love the idea of, I have two kids, 7 and 8, and when they go to school, they have this route where it's a road that has lots of traffic. And when they cross that road, I always tell them that even though you have the plan to go to the school, you need to stop there and use your perception. Look to the left, look to the right, and there is like huge bushes on the side of the road, and I tell them that then you have to listen if a car comes.
So you're teaching them to be risk aware,
exactly.
Observe to handle the different stuff.
And you cannot plan that kind of stuff, the perception that you get there. So it was mind-blowing.
But you can rehearse, and that's why we build up the skill sets, and then you teach yourself to observe all the time and mentally rehearse, so that we're able to recognize situations when they happen.
Yeah, that's cool. You travel a lot to testing conferences and do videos on YouTube, and I've seen your videos on Instagram as well. They're awesome.
On Instagram.
And on Instagram you can find him on Evil Tester.
Everything is pretty much
Evil Tester.
Evil Tester.
Yeah, I actually I met in the European Testing Conference. I met Richard Bradshaw, and he chose the friendly tester. He actually said that the friendly tester, he came up with it when he had met you. The evil tester, he wanted something similar but different. Well, I'm not sure, but hey, how did you come up with that kind of a name or a nick?
So it's partly because evil is a word that we give to things in retrospect that are not what we class as the norm or good. Right? And testing is constantly doing things outside the norm, constantly doing things to systems that no one else wants to see done.
Challenge the status quo.
information that we don't actually want to receive, but we have to act on it when we get it.
Cool.
And it was constantly that aside. And it was also because I'm old enough to remember waterfall and things like that, testing was seen as a necessary evil.
Yeah.
I just thought, I'll make it a necessary evil, and we'll just call it out.
Yeah.
But also, people get hung up on words. So I quite like words that provoke people into thinking, is that really important? Do I care about that word? What does that mean underneath?
Yeah, but it's somehow I think that it might even give you some kind of a mandate to be a little more challenging if you say
adopt
you're
that as
the evil tester.
a headset,
Yeah.
right? If you switch, because in that talk I was talking about switching beliefs.
Yeah.
So if you can bring on beliefs that help you explore things in different ways, it gives you permission, it gives you more confidence in approaching it that way.
Yeah.
It gives you a different focus, because in order to live up to that label, you have to do things that other people don't do. I have to approach things much more technical, low level, find things, which is why also I'm doing more security testing and doing bug bounties.
Cool.
So that I'm actually getting in on that really, really targeted nastiness to systems.
Wow, I would so much like to ask what's the biggest bounty you've gotten, but
So I've only
let's
got
skip that
one
question.
bounty. So
One bounty,
I found massive security holes before bug bounties were really important.
Okay, yeah.
But I just got one a couple of weeks ago, but it's only about $150, but it's such a tiny
great.
defect, it's fine.
It's a great reward.
Um,
One final question. Since you travel a lot and think about testing a lot and give speeches, what are like the most exciting topics about testing at the moment for you?
I'm actually going back to older computer books, right? Because I want to bring more computer science back into my work, right? Because people are getting more and more interested in AI, right? So I'm going back to look at genetic algorithms and neural nets and see where they came from to see how much it's advanced. But what really excites me is the security testing stuff, because that is constantly advancing to try and deal with new technologies. Because normally when we deal with new technology, we deal with it on a surface level, does the functionality that sits on top. Security testing is hitting it hard, going, what are the risks? How can we bypass this? What has this newly exposed in our system? So security testing for me is a really exciting thing to look at.
Cool. Thanks for the answers and great session of talking. My hand is starting to shake, if you notice, because I'm holding a phone here. So let's give a thumbs up to everybody who's watching and follow him. He's the Evil Tester with the Evil Tester handle on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you go. You can find him there. He has some amazing content for you to enjoy.
Thanks very much. Thumbs.
Yeah, the thumbs.